Well, hello there. Welcome back to, this is part 2 of chapter 2 for CMIS422 Information Security. And so if you'll watch this video, we can stay caught up with our schedule after the Labor Day holiday. And this shouldn't take too long to wrap up the topics, but there's some important things we still need to talk about in chapter 2. So let's get started. Remember that there are 12 categories of threats, potential threats that they're talking about. I showed you the MITRE list that's a much more comprehensive categorization scheme. All categorization schemes are arbitrary and artificial. This one is as good as another, but I think 12 is too many to test you on in depth. I want you to recognize these 12 on the exam, but there are 4 of them that we're going to go into some more detail on. In the spirit of keeping things simple, I do think even though all category schemes are artificial, it's good to have category schemes just so you can ensure that you do have comprehensive security in the sense of having a checklist of things. Am I thinking about this, that, and making sure that you have controls in place for all the categories, just to make sure you're not forgetting something. So let's get started with the first category of threats that I want to talk about is espionage or trespassing on the network, but stealing competitive information off of somebody's network. While gathering competitive intelligence is a legal process where you're going to public web pages and Gartner reports and Forrester reports and gathering information that's in the public domain, that's totally legal. Espionage comes into play when you're stealing things that are proprietary, that are behind a firewall, that you're not authorized to access. So hackers can, cyber criminals, let's say, use a number of techniques, some of them technological, but most of them not high-tech, in order to bypass your controls. And I've got a good example to show you. Okay, I want to show you a video from the National Counterintelligence and Security Center. If you go to ncsc.gov, there's a lot of great information out there, a lot of great training information out there to go through if you're wanting to pursue a career in cybersecurity. There's one video that I've been using for a few years that I think is compelling because it's a great example of how cyber criminals are actually working as a business team to gather this information. And there are a lot of interesting scams and social engineering techniques in this video. So the problem is I want you to be able to hear this. So I'm going to crank up my volume and hopefully you can hear it. If you can't, you might have to open up the link separately, but we're going to try this. Okay, here goes nothing. A video within a video.
In today's fast-paced business environment, proprietary and insider information can have significant value. Your intellectual property is at great risk and is being targeted aggressively by competitors. Intelligence collection and analysis professionals from around the world, many with specialized government experience and training, are available for hire. They use technologies and tradecraft once associated solely with intelligence and security organizations and can offer an unfair advantage to your competitors. In the example we are about to see, a major pharmaceutical company preparing for a new product launch is targeted by a Venezuelan competitor developing a similar product. The Venezuelan company's professional all-source collection team is working clandestinely from a small war room to collect proprietary information in advance of their target's launch date.
Ok, escuchen todo muy bien. Mañana en la mañana hay que presentarle el reporte a la gente del laboratorio Selmore. Así que quiero que todas las piezas se den en su lugar. Así que, por favor.
Sabemos que Vilcor tiene un gran anuncio el 17. Llamé al hotel en la cual han hecho las últimas 3 conferencias y confirmaron que el salón grande está reservado para ese mismo día. Ellos están gastando mucho dinero. Seguramente tienen un gran anuncio que hacer.
Ok. Entonces quiero que te metas a la internet, veas todo lo que puedes en su página oficial. Después te vas a las redes sociales y hay que tener todos sus puntos bien cubiertos.
Okay.
Carla.
Pues yo he tenido gran éxito. Vilco era muy inteligente, pudo separar la basura clasificada con la basura regular. Pero antes que las quemaron, la echaron con las bolsas regulares. Pues yo aquí tengo las bolsas con los documentos sensitivos.
Ok, pero ¿qué averiguaste en general?
Recibos de compras, de órdenes, yo tenía notas de propiedades, lo más importante, prototipos del diseño del producto nuevo. Y yo estoy segura que la nueva línea va a salir al mercado muy pronto.
Muy bien. Vamos a ver contigo, Luis.
Ok, publiqué un anuncio en varios sitios en internet buscando un profesional especializado en este sector específico del sector farmacéutico y recibí muchas respuestas, incluyendo 3 científicos que han trabajado con Vilco en el año pasado. Todos los 3 habían trabajado en el nuevo diseño del producto. Me confirmaron que Vilco está implantando la segunda fase que estábamos esperando. Bueno, podemos recomendarle a nuestro cliente que lance la solución alternativa al mercado. Esta ruta, este camino está totalmente abierto ahora.
No, eso está excelente, muy buen trabajo. Quisiera que hoy a la medianoche tenga el reporte completo de todos ustedes, ¿ok?
Ok, muy bien.
Gracias.
Due to a general lack of awareness and poor security practices, the launch of the new product line was scooped by the Venezuelan competitor and resulted in dire financial consequences for the targeted company. Consider the following. Identify your company's proprietary information and protect it accordingly. Recognize and understand the aggressive techniques that may be used to steal your corporate secrets. Understand the vulnerabilities associated with your company's daily activities and its intellectual property, and use appropriate countermeasures. And, most important, educate employees about the importance to each of them of protecting company information from a wide variety of threats.
All right, so what did we learn in that video? Well, number one, I want the takeaway to be the professionalism of that team of people. They don't meet the stereotype of hackers, do they? They're very organized, very professional. They're writing business reports. They're doing presentations to each other. They're gathering information in a very methodical way, although unscrupulous, and not necessarily high tech. You've got looking at web pages, dumpster diving, and the tricky one, posting fake job postings to lure people from your company to do phone interviews, so that we can just ask you about your work and your current position. That's just evil, but damn clever. And one more video that I'd like to show you, just because this is with an executive at Lockheed Martin, right up the road, so very relevant for our area, but he's got a great perspective on information security and what it is we're trying to protect and how and why. Okay, this is the Chief Security Officer for Lockheed Martin. So and this is off the FBI.gov site. So let's hear what he has to say.
Well, it's a very serious issue for our company and certainly I think the entire defense industrial base. The military base is being targeted virtually every single day by foreign nation states. We understand that. And we've taken a lot of steps to try to mitigate the risk. What our office has tried to do, our counterintelligence office within Lockheed Martin, is to understand the nature of the threat against Lockheed Martin. That is, what products, what services, what technology is high on the list of adversaries to steal. And one of the principal ways we understand that is through the cooperative efforts with the FBI. Once we are able to identify the threat, we then try to develop mitigation plans around that such that we reduce our risk. Because ultimately, the risk can affect a number of things at a company like Lockheed Martin. First of all, current and future revenues, shareholder confidence, and in our case, because many times we are providing a product or service for the U.S. military, it ultimately can affect the national security and even potentially harm the warfighter on the battlefield. The Bureau, I think, a number of years ago recognized that it's very important to partner with companies, particularly in the defense base, because that's a serious threat to our national security. And so it has been a mutually designed effort on the part of the Bureau, a company like Lockheed Martin, to make sure that we have established relationships at the national level. And because we have facilities throughout the country, even at the local level. So our folks in places like Fort Worth, Texas, and Sunnyvale, California, have established and developed some very, very close relationships with the FBI field offices in those areas. I see our relationship with the Bureau really in three separate ways. And first of all, it's in that sharing. So the Bureau, I believe, has been really proactive in helping us understand the nature of the threat and understanding how adversaries might look to steal our intellectual property. Second, the Bureau has been very, very good in working with us to help educate our employee base about just how serious that threat is to a company like ours. So on many occasions, all around the country, at many of our facilities, FBI agents have come out, who are experts in the field, and talked to our employees about the threat, about how real it is and how potentially dangerous it is. And then thirdly, in the instance where there's a suspected case of wrongdoing, we have worked, our investigators internally, very closely with the FBI in understanding the facts of that particular situation. And that relationship has been very, very good and positive. I can understand, I think, why some companies would be a little leery about inviting the FBI in to look at the inner workings of their company. But in the event that a company has information stolen, either by a foreign adversary or an insider, ultimately the company is a victim of a crime. And the FBI has a long history and a very positive history of understanding the concerns of a victim and working with that victim to do what a victim would want and hope for, which is the vindication of their rights and ultimately a just result. So I think that's very much in the FBI's wheelhouse, even in this different sort of crime. It's a multifaceted approach, really. Everything from ensuring that our clearance process and our background investigation process of our employees is really, really robust, all the way to making sure that security professionals within an organization are engaged with the employee base such that we understand what's going on with them in their lives. And it's also important to cultivate, I believe, a culture of an engagement so that employees understand what the threat is and are able to work with and be engaged with their fellow employees to try to mitigate that risk. I think it's really important that...
We're going to pause there for a second. Okay, I think I showed you a little more of that video than I intended to, but that's okay. But I apologize if the sound quality was not great on that. And here, I wonder if I can scooch this down. Hang on. There, that's a little better. And I don't know if you can hear a beeping sound in the background. There's construction right outside my window. So I told you this is going to be low budget. But the CISO of Lockheed Martin had a lot of interesting things to say, and you should be taking notes as you watch these videos. But the first step, figuring out what it is, what assets have value, what information assets have value that might be worth stealing. So you have to think like a criminal. And then identifying all the possible threats, exactly what we're talking about in Chapter 2, identifying all the threats. Can we eliminate every single threat? Nope. But we can mitigate the most likely and most impactful threats. And that's where risk analysis comes into play, and figuring out a risk mitigation plan to reduce the impact, not to eliminate, but just to reduce the impact of a threat. And then he talked a bit about the tight relationship with FBI. I think this is a key to success, that early on in your career, you need to get some contacts at the FBI, because and even if you're just looking at FBI.gov, for example, because that's going to help you with threat intelligence. Now, if you sign up with InfraGard, 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 it's free to sign up. You'll get access to internal FBI bulletins every single week. That's extraordinarily helpful. And he mentioned education. There was a lot of educational material, but at a lot of the sites that I'm showing you, but the FBI included. So you don't necessarily have to, if you're responsible for educating your employees, you don't have to come up with new stuff. Maybe you can reuse some of the stuff that's on the FBI page. And also you get that kind of name recognition of this is from the FBI, and people are going to take it seriously, hopefully. And then finally, he didn't use the word prosecution, but that's what the FBI is all about. He was describing more the forensic activities that the FBI can help you with. So if you don't have the in-house expertise to go through all your log files and figure out the vector of attack and how they got in, and how widespread the issue was, the FBI has a team that, depending on the size of your company, right, and the dollar amount that we're talking about, has a team that'll come in and help you out. So this is good to know. But InfraGard is kind of your first step of getting some good interaction with the FBI. Under the same category, we've got two broad categories of hackers that are trying to commit industrial espionage. One is the expert hacker. So like in the video, a team of experts that are working together and using technology and psychological manipulation tools to get information. The other category are children, really. Packet monkeys, script kiddies, whatever you want to call them, just unskilled teenagers and younger that are attacking companies just because they found a forum where they could download a script, or they could just press go and it would launch an attack. So this is also something to watch out for. I'm a little more scared of the expert hacker than the unskilled hacker, because we should have some defenses against that. Although at InfraGard conferences, the FBI tells some crazy stories about teenage hackers. In fact, remember 2 years ago when the big DNS attack on the Eastern Seaboard, when Netflix and Amazon and Hulu and everybody went offline for like an hour and everybody thought the world was going to end. It was a bunch of stupid teenagers, and it's an interesting story, a circle of gamers and how they were trying to, well, it's a long story, but it's an interesting story. Maybe we can get into it in class. But there's a variety of kind of hacker profiles, as it were. Terminology in green is not, sorry, I keep moving my head to kind of be in this little kind of box right here like that, but I don't know. Terminology in green is just background info for you. I haven't heard people really use these terms in a long time, but the terminology in red you're definitely responsible for, and I'm not going to spoon feed everything to you. You need to look up these definitions if you're uncomfortable with these terms. So at this point you really should understand all of these based on your reading, and there you go. You gotta read the textbook. But we do have to talk about the best way to foil an external attack, an attempted sabotage, at least electronic sabotage. Now, dumpster diving and kind of offline activities like that are a separate category. But in terms of protecting your assets, obviously usernames and passwords are the most common way of controlling access. So for passwords, please be aware that it's all about length, the length of your password. Complexity certainly is an issue. Notice here, you have to make some assumptions with this chart, but for a case-insensitive password, an 8-letter password can be cracked in 1.9 seconds. That's frightening. If we bump it up to 16 characters, that goes up to, what is this, 12,000 years? So length. It's all about the length. Now, if we look at case sensitive, so we add upper and lowercase characters making a difference, a short password, still only going to take 5 hours to break that. given the opportunity. Whereas a password that's just twice as long doesn't take twice as much time, 10 hours. It actually takes whatever number this is, 1,000, million, billion, a trillion years. It assumes a lot with, today's PC architecture and everything and speeds. But even if you had a really fast computer working on this, you're still talking about billions of years. So length, there is strength in length. Long equals strong. And I'm trying not to say that in any kind of suggestive way, but however you remember it, it's good to remember long is strong, okay? Length is strength. Okay. Now, if you're trying to crack a password, it does make sense to try some of the more obvious ones. And there are a lot of websites that publicize in some kind of wall of shame the top kind of generic passwords that a lot of people and a lot of system administrators still to this day use because they're easy to type in. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If you have to guess at a password, go ahead and try some of these. QWERTY, password. God is usually on the list somewhere. A string of zeros, a string of ones. Football. There are a lot of popular ones. Or if you're going to do your own kind of custom dictionary attack, maybe you put these common ones at the top of your list to try it for your script, say your Python script or whatever, to automatically try first, just so you can break the password sooner rather than later. Just a thought. All right, so category number 1 was sabotage. Number 2 is human error. So unintentional behavior, accidental behavior, but through ignorance more so than negligence, either through inexperience or typically improper training. So remember, your end users are not expected to be IT experts like you are, and you can't expect too much of them. But I think more and more employees do realize they're part of the solution. They do take some responsibility. They just need to be taught how to protect themselves. There is a PricewaterhouseCoopers report I'll stick on Blackboard for you to take a peek at that points to employees as one of the greatest threats to an organization. Also notice that when we're talking about protecting information, it's not just about a data breach or leaking information out onto the internet. It could also be training employees not to delete information that they're not supposed to, which has everything to do with proper access control. They shouldn't be able to delete things that you don't want them to. Or keying in incorrect information. That is also a threat to information security, having wrong information in the system. So some of these less than obvious areas are things you have to take into consideration when you're developing a training program. But sometimes it's just the obvious stuff, like preventing shoulder surfing. If somebody comes up behind you, you really should kind of minimize the screen, kind of turn around and, hey, what's going on? And, to keep them from looking. Also, to keep, a lot of companies have a clean desk policy such that you will get into trouble if you're leaving paperwork out on your desk for people to see. So typically paperwork has to be locked up. Screens have to be, Control-Alt-Delete before you walk away and go to the bathroom. Otherwise, at a minimum, IT people are a bunch of pranksters, and they will do bad things to your desktop while you step away if you don't lock your machine first. So bad on you if you forget to do it. It is a very common phrase. It's becoming a cliche in security now to say that people are the weakest link, but it's true. People take a lot more protecting and controlling, in the sense of creating controls to monitor behavior and reinforce good behavior is so much more important than just technology, because if you can have all of your network gear up and running completely successfully, and if you've got somebody that's clicking on things they shouldn't, or is letting somebody in physically in the back door who doesn't, and not making them swipe through with their badge to get into the building, as Kevin Mitnick says, that's all she wrote, baby. Kevin Mitnick is the man. He's the man when it comes to social engineering, for a variety of reasons. He was, I think, certainly one of the first to get prosecuted under the 1986 Computer Crime law. I think we discussed in classes probably the early 90s before he was actually caught, turned in by a friend of his, with friends like that, who needs enemies. I'm a fan. He's from North Carolina also, so he's like a hometown boy done good. Not really, but he served his time in jail, and now he's a free man, and you can go to, I think it's Kevin Mitnick, or MitnickSecurity.com, or MitnickConsulting.com. Check it out. He's got a lot of free training out there, but you can hire him for, millions of dollars to come consult with your company too. But I use his material a lot. In fact, is right on my shelf, if you will allow me to demonstrate. So this is the Art of Deception. This is a book I'd love to flip through to get ideas, because he's got lots of suggestions for how to gain entry, including such, let's see, find some goodies in here. Posing as a fellow employee, posing as the employee of a vendor or partner company or law enforcement, posing as somebody in authority, posing as a new employee requesting help. Ooh, because everybody wants to help. They want to help new people. Posing as a vendor or system manufacturer calling to offer a system patch or update. Clever. Offering help if a problem occurs, then making the problem occur, thereby manipulating the victim to call them for help. Oh, sneaky. Sending free software or patch for the victim to install. Sending a virus or Trojan horse as an email attachment. Oldie but a goodie. Leaving a USB stick around in the workplace with malicious software on it. Like just throw it in the parking lot. Then it's zzz, just wait for somebody to pick it up and plug it into their laptop, and boom, you're in. I don't want to read the whole list because this is too much information to. It's too powerful. You shouldn't really be reading anything like this.